It started in the early 1960s, a wave of lurid thrillers where once glamorous stars took on roles that were grotesque, unhinged, and unforgettable. At the center of it all was Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, a critical and commercial hit that opened the floodgates. What followed was a strange new subgenre, loosely dubbed Hagsploitation, where camp collided with horror and old Hollywood met new shocks. From gothic classics to sunbaked thrillers and twisted oddities, these movies pushed legends into territory audiences would never forget. This is the complete guide to the Grand Dame Guignol era. In the Arizona desert, grief turns to greed in Whatever Happened to Aunt Alice, a sunbaked thriller where the skeletons don't stay buried for long. Geraldine Page plays Claire Marable, a recently widowed woman who discovers her late husband left her penniless. To maintain her lavish lifestyle, she devises a brutal scheme: hire elderly housekeepers, steal their savings, and dispose of them under the guise of domestic turnover. But when one new maid, played by Ruth Gordon, starts growing suspicious, a deadly cat-and-mouse game begins. Directed by Lee H. Katzin and produced by Robert Aldrich, who also produced Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, the film trades gothic shadows for wide, arid landscapes and a growing sense of moral decay. Page is deliciously cold-blooded, all brittle smiles and buried secrets, while Gordon brings a spry mix of warmth and wariness. The movie is tense, clever, and quietly brutal, and Aunt Alice is one of the genre's sharpest entries.
If you want to live like some duchess, some Maharani, you better learn to behave like one.
Bette Davis dials up the venom in The Anniversary, a black comedy where family dysfunction meets full-blown psychological warfare. She plays a one-eyed matriarch who gathers her 3 grown sons each year to celebrate her wedding anniversary, despite her husband being long dead. What follows is a tense, often absurd power play.
Shirley, my dear, would you mind sitting somewhere else? Body odor offends me.
I haven't got body odor.
As secrets surface, and Davis delivers her cutting lines with theatrical glee. With its single-location setting and stage play structure, it leans more toward camp than horror, but Betty's towering performance makes it unforgettable.
To Dad.
To Dad.
Barbara Stanwyck enters a world of nightmares in The Night Walker, a sleek psychological thriller directed by William Castle. She plays Irene Trent, the wealthy but emotionally trapped wife of a blind, possessive inventor. When he dies in a suspicious explosion, Irene is plagued by vivid dreams of a mysterious lover, dreams that begin to bleed into her waking life. As her grasp on reality slips, she's drawn into a web of gaslighting, paranoia, and buried secrets. Known for his gimmicks, Castle plays it surprisingly straight here, leaning into a moody, noir-like style that lets Stanwyck do all the heavy lifting with her performance. With striking dream sequences, eerie music, and a growing sense of unreality, The Night Walker plays like a late-era noir, reimagined as a ghost story. It's one of Stanwyck's last starring roles, and a quietly unsettling swan song for her screen persona. Tallulah Bankhead delivers a gloriously unhinged final performance as a fanatical mother with a deadly grip on the past. When a young American woman, played by Stephanie Powers, visits her late fiancé's mother in the English countryside, she finds herself imprisoned by a woman who refuses to accept that her son is gone, or that anyone else can control his legacy.
What are you wearing? The devil's color. Go upstairs immediately and put on something proper.
Yes, Mrs. Trefoil.
It's almost 7 o'clock. We must not fall behind the day's routine.
What begins as an awkward visit spirals into religious mania, locked doors, and psychological torment. Directed by Silvio Narizano and shot in vivid Technicolor, The film mixes old-school gothic suspense with 60s edge. Bankhead leans into the role with theatrical rage, turning every line into a sermon and every glance into a threat. It's claustrophobic, stylish, and often shockingly intense, a fitting farewell for one of Hollywood's boldest personalities. Joan Fontaine stars in The Witches, a slow-burning British thriller with a sense of creeping dread. After suffering a breakdown while working abroad, her character takes a teaching job in a quiet English village, only to sense that something isn't quite right. Whispers of pagan rituals, eerie behavior from the locals, and a disturbing student-teacher relationship build toward a strange and unforgettable finale. Produced by Hammer Films, it trades blood and shocks for a more psychological, almost folkloric unease.
Witchcraft? Somebody having a little dabble? Yes, I would think so.
Fontaine brings a fragile elegance to the role, and while the pacing is deliberate, the mood lingers long after the credits roll. The Baby follows a social worker assigned to a case involving a grown man known only as Baby, who wears diapers, doesn't speak, and is treated like an infant by his mother and two sisters. What starts as an offbeat psychological drama quickly slides into exploitation territory, with scenes that are as uncomfortable as they are unforgettable. Ruth Roman stars as Mrs. Wadsworth, while director Ted Post frames everything with a matter-of-fact tone that makes it feel even more unsettling. Beneath the twisted premise lies a dark commentary on control, trauma, and dependency. But make no mistake, this one leans fully into the grotesque. With its lurid tone, strange performances, and a truly shocking final act, The Baby is the kind of film you watch once and never forget.
Come on, please. That's good. Come on, just a big smile.
I Saw What You Did follows two teenage girls making prank phone calls.
I saw what you did, and I know who you are.
Until one of their jokes accidentally targets a real murderer. Joan Crawford plays Amy Nelson, a lonely, unstable woman who's become entangled with the killer and grows increasingly jealous and paranoid. While she doesn't headline here, when she does show up, she makes it count.
You're too young.
It's a role loaded with the kind of bottled-up rage that defined this era for aging stars. Directed by William Castle, it mixes teen thriller energy with moments of genuine suspense, and Joan's presence adds weight to an otherwise pulpy setup, proving once again that even in a secondary role, she could steal the whole movie. Dear Dead Delilah is a slow-burning Southern Gothic full of backstabbing airs, buried secrets, and Agnes Moorehead delivering one of the more quietly sinister performances of her later career. She plays Delilah Charles, a bitter matriarch confined to a wheelchair, surrounded by greedy relatives circling for a piece of her fortune. When the bodies start piling up and someone begins unearthing family skeletons, literally, the line between inheritance drama and slasher flick starts to blur. The pacing is uneven and the production low budget, but its grim tone and sense of moral rot give it an edge. Moorehead plays it with sharpness and restraint. She's not explosive, but there's a coiled menace beneath her every word. It's a role that lets her age with command, not fragility, and she owns it. Lauren Bacall dials down the glamour in Shock Treatment, playing the head of a private mental clinic with more than therapy on her mind. As Dr. Edwina Bagley, she's calm, elegant, and quietly unhinged. When a man checks in under false pretenses to investigate his brother's death, he finds himself trapped in a place where control is everything. Bacall's performance is icy and restrained, letting her cruelty surface in small, chilling moments. There's no camp here, just cold calculation. It's a slower burn than other films on this list, but the menace is real, and Bacall's descent into obsession makes it count. Nobody's calling Trog an overlooked masterpiece, but it holds a strange place in film history as Joan Crawford's final role. She plays Dr. Brockton, a scientist who discovers a feral, prehistoric man living in a cave and attempts to study and civilize him. Crawford reportedly wanted to play a scientist to show that women could be authoritative, intellectual leads. A bold move in 1970, even if the material didn't exactly rise to the occasion. The result is part horror, part sci-fi, and part bizarre TV movie, with Joan performing dead serious opposite a man in an ape mask. The film has become infamous for its absurdity, but there's something oddly noble about how committed she is to every line. It may not be a great film, but it's a closing chapter to both her illustrious career and this subgenre's decline. Classically trained, two-time Oscar winner, and no stranger to playing women on the edge, Olivia de Havilland stars in The Screaming Woman, a made-for-TV thriller about isolation, perception, and the danger of not being believed. She plays Laura Wynant, a wealthy woman recently returned home from a sanitarium, where she spent time recovering from an unspecified mental breakdown. She's stable now, or so she claims, but the people around her seem more comfortable keeping her quietly out of the way. While walking the grounds of her estate, Laura hears something buried underground, a woman's voice, faint and panicked.
Oh my God!
She tries to raise the alarm, but no one takes her seriously.
That's enough! Mother, come on!
Still say it, please. No, you can...
She really didn't make much sense, did she?
Her doctors say she's overreacting. Kids run away. Her staff writes it off as nerves. And with every hour that passes, the screaming grows weaker. De Havilland plays it straight, anchoring the story with a brittle dignity that gradually cracks as the isolation sets in. Joseph Cotten appears in a supporting role, but this is Olivia's show, and she carries it without leaning on camp or spectacle. Just a woman who's lost her credibility and may be the only one who knows the truth. The horror comes not from what's buried, but from how easily she's dismissed and how helpless that makes her. By the early 1970s, network TV was churning out thrillers that could get surprisingly dark, and A Taste of Evil is one of the better ones. Produced by Aaron Spelling and premiering on ABC's Movie of the Week on October 12, 1971, it paired Barbara Stanwyck with Barbara Parkins for a twisted story of trauma, paranoia, and family secrets. Parkins plays Susan, a young woman returning home after years in a psychiatric clinic following a childhood assault. Her mother, Miriam, played by Stanwyck, is welcoming but cold, and it doesn't take long before strange events make Susan question her sanity all over again. Add Roddy McDowall as the family doctor and William Wyndham as the new stepfather, and the stage is set for a house full of suspicion and gaslighting. Stanwyck is the one to watch. Her performance is sharp and grows more unsettling as the story turns.
Wasn't me. You're a liar! You're a liar! Get out!
The movie is a mix of creepy atmosphere and star power, and the kind of small screen thriller that manages to feel a little bigger than its made-for-TV roots. Part slasher, part gothic melodrama, Blood and Lace is one of the stranger horror films of the early 70s. It opens with a brutal hammer murder, then shifts to the story of a teenage girl sent to an orphanage after her mother's death. But this home is more like a prison, run by a cold, calculating matron played by Gloria Graham. She keeps the kids in line through intimidation, and those who rebel don't stick around for long. The movie piles on lurid shocks and twisted caretaker dynamics, often feeling more like a rough draft for the slasher wave that was about to arrive later in the decade. Graham, once a respected Oscar winner, doesn't hold back. She plays the role with a mean streak, turning every order and threat into something unsettling. Blood and Lace may be cheap and uneven, but it's exactly the kind of movie that shows how Hollywood's older stars were being shoved into roles designed for maximum shock value. And that's the hook. A once-celebrated actress anchoring a movie that weaves between soap opera theatrics and proto-slasher nastiness. If you're looking for something that feels both ahead of its time and hopelessly stuck in it, Blood and Lace delivers that strange, watchable mix. After nearly 2 decades off the screen, Veronica Lake made her big return in Flesh Feast, a Florida-shot horror oddity that also became her final film. Instead of slipping back into noir shadows, Lake plays a scientist conducting bizarre experiments with flesh-eating maggots, and it only gets stranger from there. Secret labs, political intrigue, and a climax so outrageous it feels like a grindhouse fever dream. What makes it worth revisiting isn't just the shock value, but the novelty of seeing Lake in such an unexpected role. Once the sultry star of classics like This Gun for Hire and The Blue Dahlia, here she's sweaty, frantic, and knee-deep in pure exploitation mayhem. Flesh Feast is cheap, rough, and more than a little absurd. But it's also the kind of movie you throw on just to marvel that it even exists. It may not be a fitting farewell, but as a slice of cult movie madness and Veronica Lake's unexpected curtain call, it's hard to resist. Watching a Golden Age star headline a story about killer maggots and conspiracy plots is so wildly out of step with her old Hollywood image that it turns into its own spectacle. Beryl Reid and Flora Robson star as 2 reclusive sisters living in the English countryside with a dangerous family secret locked away beneath their floorboards. When soldiers stationed nearby start turning up dead, the trail eventually leads back to their crumbling home and to the beast they've been keeping hidden for years. The movie leans heavily on the uneasy chemistry between the 2 leads as their prim, proper routines gradually give way to paranoia and guilt. Reid plays it fussy and defensive, while Robson simmers with quiet dread, and together they carry a film that's more strange than scary. The beast in the cellar is slow, talky, and undeniably odd, but it's also the kind of offbeat detour that shows how older stars were being plugged into horror stories just as the genre was shifting into rougher territory. It's part drawing room drama, part creature feature, and completely unlike anything else from the era, which is exactly what makes it a great late-night watch. Bette Davis goes full supervillain in Madam Sin, a made-for-TV spy thriller that feels like a Bond movie put through a Saturday matinee blender. It premiered on ABC's Movie of the Week in January 1972 and was originally meant to launch a full series, but that obviously didn't happen. Davis plays the title role, running a secret island fortress in the Scottish Highlands. She plots world domination with the help of brainwashing machines and a personal army of mod henchmen. Robert Wagner shows up as an ex-CIA agent dragged into her plans, mostly to look confused, while Davis stomps around in capes and sunglasses, threatening everyone in sight. And while more of a thriller than exploitation horror, the whole thing plays like a cartoon, and that's what makes it so entertaining. Davis leans into every over-the-top moment with theatrical precision, giving a performance that somehow manages to be both campy and commanding. If you've ever wanted to see Bette Davis as a high-tech villain mastermind, orchestrating mind control plots from a futuristic lair, this is your chance. By the early 1990s, the era of serious psycho-biddy horror had mostly passed, but that didn't stop the Boneyard from cranking the whole thing up to 11. This straight-to-video monster movie, released in 1991, and stars Phyllis Diller as a morgue worker who doesn't stay human for long. Deborah Rose plays a reclusive clairvoyant, pulled into a murder investigation at a county morgue, where the corpses in question aren't exactly resting in peace. As the night unfolds, it's revealed that the bodies are actually ancient ghouls, and once they wake up, everything turns into a siege movie with rotting skin and glowing eyes. Phyllis Diller plays the night attendant, Miss Poopenplatz, who eventually becomes the movie's most memorable monster. The transformation is pure rubber suit chaos, a low-budget detective story that quickly mutates into a full-blown creature feature. Complete with exploding corpses, demon-possessed poodles, and a morgue full of slime and screaming, once it goes off the rails, it's loud, messy, and completely ridiculous. The kind of movie where you'll keep watching just to see what insane thing happens next. 1967's Berserk pairs Joan Crawford with the garish spectacle of a traveling circus, directed by Jim O'Connelly and co-starring British actor Ty Harden and Diana Dors. Joan plays Monica Rivers, the tough, unflinching owner of a struggling circus plagued by a string of suspicious accidents.
I keep wondering and thinking, who's next?
High wires snap, tent poles give way, and the body count rises as tensions flare under the big top. Between the bright colors of the sawdust ring and the shadowy corners where secrets lurk, the film blends old-fashioned showmanship with a whodunit's creeping paranoia. O'Connelly uses real circus acts for authenticity, giving it an almost documentary feel, before plunging back into its melodramatic murder mystery. By this point in her career, Crawford had embraced the lurid thrillers of the era, and this one leans hard into the gimmick. She commands the center ring with icy authority, making Berserk a pulpy, over-the-top ride through danger, jealousy, and spectacle. The Killing of Sister George is an adaptation of Frank Marcus's stage play that takes a darker, more psychological turn. Beryl Reid stars as June Buckridge, a middle-aged actress who plays the beloved Sister George on a popular British soap opera. Off-camera, June is abrasive, insecure, and clinging desperately to her fading career and her younger partner, played by Susanna York. When she learns her character may be written out of the show, her personal and professional lives begin to unravel in tandem. The film weaves jealousy, paranoia, and sexual politics into a tense character study, with Aldrich pulling no punches in showing June's spiraling desperation. While less overtly horror than other entries in the genre, director Robert Aldrich had already cemented himself in Hagsploitation history with Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte, but its frankness and emotional cruelty make it one of the most unsettling and unflinching films in the genre. Lady in a Cage takes a simple premise and turns it into 90 minutes of claustrophobic terror.
Help! Help!
Directed by Walter Grauman and starring Olivia de Havilland, the film traps its heroine in her own home when a power outage strands her between floors in a private elevator. What begins as an inconvenience escalates into a waking nightmare when her calls for help attract a gang of intruders, led by a young James Caan in his first major film role. The action unfolds almost entirely within the house, with the elegant, refined de Havilland forced into a fight for survival against increasingly sadistic tormentors. Mixing home invasion horror with a sharp critique of urban decay and moral collapse, Lady in a Cage is mean-spirited, tense, and impossible to look away from. A prime example of the genre's ability to wring high drama and violence from a single, contained setting. Whoever slew Auntie Roo gives Shelley Winters one of her juiciest Hagsploitation roles.
Children don't want to leave here. You have a home now, forever.
Directed by Curtis Harrington, the film reimagines Hansel and Gretel through a twisted lens, with Winters as Rosie Auntie Roo, a wealthy widow who hosts an annual Christmas party for orphans in her sprawling Gothic mansion. Beneath her warm, grandmotherly exterior lies an unhinged obsession with a dead daughter and a dangerous fixation on a young girl she believes can replace her. When two children begin to suspect her intentions, the story veers into fairy tale horror, complete with locked rooms, whispered threats, and the ominous creak of floorboards in the dark. Harrington leans into its storybook gone wrong atmosphere, while Winters alternates between sugary charm and manic fury. Equal parts camp and menace, it's one of the genre's most offbeat and unsettling entries. Dead Ringer sees Bette Davis pulling double duty as twin sisters caught in a web of murder and deception. Directed by Paul Henreid, best known to audiences as Victor Laszlo in Casablanca, the film follows down on her luck Edith, who hatches a deadly scheme to assume the identity of her wealthy, recently widowed sister Margaret. The plan appears flawless until the lies start to fray, and the police begin to circle. Davis relishes the chance to play both icy elegance and desperate cunning, sometimes within the same scene, while Henreid keeps the pace taut and the suspense simmering. With its noir sensibilities, moody black and white cinematography, and a star at the peak of her Hagsploitation powers, Dead Ringer turns sibling rivalry into a stylish, slow-burn thriller. What's the Matter with Helen pairs Shelley Winters with Debbie Reynolds in a twisted blend of musical nostalgia and psychological horror. Directed by Curtis Harrington, who also made Whoever Slew Auntie, the film follows two women who flee to Los Angeles after their sons are convicted of murder. They open a dance school for children of Hollywood hopefuls in the 1930s, hoping to start fresh, but the past lingers. Winters plays Helen, a deeply religious woman whose grip on reality begins to slip, while Reynolds brings a brittle charm to her role as the more glamorous partner. As strange phone calls, stalkers, and Helen's spiraling mental state build tension, Harrington offsets the darkness with bright, period-accurate musical numbers, creating a jarring contrast. By the time it reaches its unnerving climax, What's the Matter with Helen has fully embraced its Hagsploitation roots, offering both campy spectacle and genuine unease. Strait-Jacket is one of the purest examples of Joan Crawford leaning all the way into the Hagsploitation era, axe in hand. Directed by William Castle, the showman behind House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler, the film was written by psycho author Robert Bloch, giving it an extra layer of credibility. Crawford plays Lucy Harbin, a woman who, in a jealous rage, murders her husband and his lover with an axe, all in front of her young daughter. After 2 decades in a mental institution, she's released to live with her now-grown child, but soon enough, fresh murders start to occur. Is Lucy slipping back into madness, or is someone setting her up? Castle milks the suspense with lurid close-ups, sudden shocks, and a few of his trademark gimmicks. Crawford gives a fierce, theatrical performance, making Strait-Jacket both a camp classic and a surprisingly tense murder mystery. The Nanny sees Bette Davis in one of her most restrained, and therefore most chilling, roles of the era. Directed by Seth Holt and produced by Hammer Films, better known for their gothic horror, the story trades supernatural frights for psychological suspense. Davis plays the seemingly devoted nanny to a troubled young boy recently released from a home for disturbed children. He insists she's dangerous, but the adults around him dismiss his warnings as paranoia. As the boy's defiance grows and unsettling accidents occur, the film teases out whether he's an unreliable narrator or the only one telling the truth. Shot in stark black and white, with Davis delivering an unnerving blend of maternal warmth and quiet menace, The Nanny builds its tension through implication and performance rather than gore, making its final reveals all the more disturbing. Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte reunited Bette Davis with director Robert Aldrich following the success of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Set in the decaying Louisiana mansion of Charlotte Hollis, a wealthy recluse rumored to have murdered her married lover decades earlier, the film blends Southern Gothic atmosphere with murder mystery. When her cousin Miriam, played by Olivia de Havilland, arrives to help her, long-buried secrets begin to surface. With supporting turns from Joseph Cotton and Agnes Moorehead, the film is loaded with melodrama, eerie flashbacks, and a violent streak that was startling for its time. Davis's portrayal of Charlotte's unraveling sanity, paired with Aldrich's moody cinematography, makes the movie one of the genre's most polished and haunting entries. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane didn't just launch the entire genre, it redefined how Hollywood could use the star power of its aging legends. Directed by Robert Aldrich, the film stars Bette Davis as former child star Baby Jane Hudson, and Joan Crawford as her sister Blanche, a successful actress now confined to a wheelchair after a mysterious accident. Trapped together in a crumbling Los Angeles mansion, the sisters' relationship devolves into psychological and physical torment. Davis's grotesque makeup and unhinged performance contrast sharply with Crawford's brittle dignity, creating a tension that blurs the line between acting and their real-life feud. With its mix of suspense, camp, and genuine horror, Baby Jane was a critical and commercial hit, paving the way for an entire decade of similar films, none of which could quite match its twisted brilliance.